Welcome back, everyone. So for today, we're going to talk about opening principles. I took as an inspiration a video from Chess Vibes, but in this one, we're going to add new knowledge. So among the new knowledge to this video, we talk about how to choose an opening, the different types of openings, piece coordination. I give nice tips on that, and where do I put my queen? So I've always had this question. Now we start with central control development, we move on to king safety, and later common mistakes in the opening stage. So let's start with this one. I want to get this one right out of the gate. If you know a lot of theory, you can forget about all the principles you will learn today. And so there are exceptions for every principle you learn, like anything. So now I want to show you a little bit of the theory with the Petroff's defense. I think this is a good example of knowing the theory. So let's say that you're playing black, white plays e4, let's go, e4, e5, knight f3, and instead of playing knight f6, you develop your knight, because why not? That is one of the principles. You develop your knights first. So knight f6, then they take your pawn, and you worry, like, oh no, I am down a pawn on move 3, so I'm going to recover and equalize the position by taking the pawn. Yeah, but now you're getting into a lot of trouble because now they can develop the queen, and now if it occurs to you to retreat with the knight, now they can move to c6, and now you're losing your queen. So yeah, that's not gonna be a very good position. What you have to do, I'm gonna go back here before you take the pawn. Yeah, you don't have to take the pawn first. You actually have to play d6. d6. Now they have to retreat the knight. Now you take the pawn on the center. Once they play queen e2, now you play queen e7. And now there is more theory. There's different kinds of moves. Here a very good one is to develop the knight. Now you can take the knight, doubling up the pawns. You trade queens because this bishop is very awkward. Now once they take, you develop your knight, and yeah, you just have a game. You develop your bishop, you want to castle, white can also castle. So yeah, this is just a game of chess. So the first thing you want to do is occupy the center with pawns and pieces. Let's say you play e4 and they don't play e5. They play something else like g6, for example, trying to develop the bishop. Then you grab more control with your pawns by playing d4. So yeah, this is what you want to do. And then you start occupying more space in the center by bringing your knights and then your bishops. Next thing you want to do is bring your knights before bishops to the central squares of the 3rd rank and the 6th rank if you're playing black. So why first the knight? Because you want to see the response from black. If you develop your bishop first, then you can get hit immediately. Let's say that you play something like bishop to b5, and they can kick out your bishop with the pawn. So first you see what black is going to do. If they develop the knight to c6, now you have very good squares, which will be c4 or b5. And let's go with Italian, which is bishop c4, and now you have a very good attacking bishop. This brings me to my next point, which is place each piece on the best possible square. You don't want to waste time and put your bishop here. A second. Put your bishop here, and then once develop your knight, or you repeat because you're protecting this pawn. No, just leave. Just get your piece to the best possible square as quickly as you can, and then if you see something like this, you also deal with threats. It's one of my next points, but you deal with this threat. You can also play something like knight b3, but here also black has tricks. For example, they can play something like this. They can take this knight, you take, and now they hit you with the pawn. So okay, we're not gonna go for that line, but yeah, let's just put the bishop here on c4, which is very efficient, and we're gonna see this line with the pawn on d3. I learned this principle from Chess Vibes. The best attacking piece is the king's bishop, meaning this bishop curiously enough, one of the best responses for black is to play bishop c5. So yeah, now these two pieces are the most powerful in the position, and there are some lines where you can go for the fried liver attack. You can put your knight here and attack this pawn. So yeah, just keep in mind this one because this is very powerful piece. So you probably have heard this one before, which is partly true, but there is always exceptions. So don't move pieces more than once in the opening. Yeah, let's say that you play bishop to g5, and now you get hit by the pawn, one of the best responses. Now you absolutely want to move this bishop. You can either retreat or take this knight. Both of them are okay. But yeah, just be cerebral and smart enough about these threats. That leads me to my next point, which is dealing with threats first. Let's say that now you castle and they hit you with a pawn. They play d5. So maybe you have this in mind. Oh, I'm gonna finish my development. I'm gonna play bishop g5 or develop my knight. No, deal with this one first. So here you take the pawn. Once they take back, now you can start developing other pieces. But yeah, deal with the threats first. So by playing d5, the opponent is opening up the center, right? So now that you take, they take, you can play rook e1. So open lines, this is my next principle, open lines benefit the more developed player. So this is going to be more beneficial for white as you're putting all this pressure on this pawn. In this position, you cannot just take here, if you were wondering. There is a lot of theory. They can also sacrifice the bishop, and it's gonna be bad. So don't take this pawn. But yeah, it's just to show you that these open lines are gonna benefit you in the long term. As a general advice, I want you to choose an opening that fits your style. So if you're a tactical, aggressive player, maybe you can choose something from this list, like the I don't know, the Grunfeld defense or the Sicilian defense. And the positional, if you're a positional player, you can choose something from this list, like the Collie system or the Caro-Kann defense. Now, I'm working on a third list, which is flexible openings, like the English or the Reti. So I will leave this one in the description. Check it out. Remember, these are not absolutes, but it's the nature of these openings. In this section, let's see some tips for king safety. So we're still analyzing the line of the Italian, and now at the top level, people play c3. This is considered top move. But just for the purpose of this video, we continue development with knight c3. It's completely fine, playable. Now we get d6 and we castle. Okay, everybody understands that. It's so easy, some people don't do it. Once we castle, we might get something like h6, preventing this bishop from coming to g5, pinning the knight. Okay, a sensible move. We have different moves here. Let's say we play a4, grabbing more space on the queen side. Now, black might want to launch their pawns. This is a mistake, and the lesson here is every pawn that is pushed in front of the king is gonna weaken the position. This king is not castle, but it still weakens the position for black. Now, what I want you to do is not moving these pawns. So don't freak out and play h3 because that is stopping the pawn or that is stopping the bishop. Don't move these 3 pawns until you absolutely have to. Next principle is that the best defender of white's king side is the knight on f3. So this is the absolute best defender, especially covering the h2 square. And probably black knows that, but there is exception for this rule. Now, let's say they play something like h4, kicking out your knight. It's fine. You just reroute it in the center. Anytime an opponent hits you on the flank or like on the side of the board, you can hit back in the center. So now they protect. Let's say they play something like h5, protecting this pawn, which wasn't under risk, but now you play c3. c3 prepares for d4 upon break, and it also prevents this knight from coming in. So the bishop has to have somewhere to retreat. That's why we have a6. Now we can hit the bishop, and at the same time we have another move in the position. So let's say black plays something like d7. Now you can pin this knight, So that's why this is weakening the position. What black has to do is they have to take this knight, and now you can take back with the pawn, and you're hitting this knight and you're hitting this bishop. One of them has to move, and we have a winning position now with white. This is another case where the best defender in the position is the knight on the king side. So in this case it's f6 for black. So here we have an equal position, and black plays c4. That blunders the game because now white can take with tempo. Once we take, this is checkmate. So there are two moves that continue the game. Here you can take the knight. Once white takes, you play g6, preventing this mate. So you can also play something like g6. You play g6 first, and if they take, you take, and now we don't have any mates. Now, when it comes down to piece coordination, there are some elements of the game that would allow your pieces to come naturally and have a harmony. So, for example, here the two bishops don't have any pawns in front of them, and yeah, they can attack these squares, for example. Now, I would like to mention something about the c pawn. When we play e4 openings, it doesn't really matter if we block our pawn by playing knight c3. So we are protecting this pawn and it's fine. In the Italian game, at top level, as I mentioned before, we play c3, and it doesn't really make much of a difference. Now there is a difference when we play d4. There is a different relationship there. So okay, we start the game with d4, d5, and then if we play knight c3, that will be a mistake. Because even though we're fighting here for this square, it's protected by the queen. And now you tell me, how do we get more attackers into this to this square, to this pawn? So what we want to do in d4 openings is playing c4, for example. That is much better move. This is the queen's gambit, and now you bring your knight. So let's say we get e6. Now we play knight c3, and now you have two attackers to this square. I'm gonna flip the board. The same thing for black. On the king side, you can disregard this rule, because let's say that we play f5 and now we bring the knight. So I guess that is playable, but that weakens the position. That weakens the king side and also leaves this backward pawn. So in this case, you don't want to do that. You just develop your knight to f6 and it's fine. And the same thing happens on this side of the board for white. So they're not pushing this pawn and then bringing the knight. That will be really awkward. We can play here bishop e7 and then we castle. So we're perfectly fine. The same principle follows. So a mistake will be to play knight b6, because now we're blocking this pawn. So what you can do is push this pawn right away, c5, going with this pawn tension. That is one option. Or even a different line, you can play b6, and then you can fianchetto the bishop to b7, and yeah, you can also bring the knight here, and later going with the ideas of c5. Where do I put my queen? I have had this question for many years. So okay, I have finished my development, and sometimes I play different openings, but I don't know where to place my queen. So there is a common pattern. I look into 10 different openings. Let me show you first with black. This is the Sicilian defense, the open either. We play queen c7. Okay, so that is queen c7. Then this is the modern defense, the standard line. We play queen e7. So okay, let's go with the next. The French defense, queen c7. I hope that you see the pattern by now. So also the Caro-Kann, queen c7. So anytime you play black, it's fine if you put your queen on the 7th rank. Sometimes on the 6th rank is okay. Now let's go with this one. Oh, the king c and defense. This was an exception is move 29, queen g5. Okay, now let's go with white. This is weird English that I think it has more like a Sicilian structure. But now you can play with black. Now you can play queen d2, queen d2, and then this is the London. Yeah, this is the London system. We play queen b3. The Collie, yeah, the Collie system, queen f3, queen e2, and the Rui Lopez. Okay, here. And next one, queen f3, the King's Gambit accepted. So in summary, you can put your queen on the third rank or the second rank with white, unless you say something really good. Maybe the opponent blunder and you can go to h5, or you can say you can go to a5 in the case with black. So, but yeah, I wouldn't really think too much about it. Maybe yeah, the first two ranks for each color. The next principle is that two pieces are worth more than a rook and a pawn. Everything is relative to their position and the value, but we cannot just count material to evaluate the position. So let's say now we play 95 black castles, we take the f pawn, and then after these trades happen, we give up on two pieces for a rook and a pawn. If we count only material, yeah, we are equal. But see all the piece activity black has. And now you have a rook, but these two rooks are stuck in the corner. So yeah, now how do you play the middle game without pieces in the middle? It's not what middle game means, but it should mean that you have these piece activities to fight for the middle, and you literally don't have anything. So okay, remember this principle. As an additional tip for openings, developing pieces that attack will be beneficial. So I think the clearest example is the Scandinavian. You play e4, e5, you take, and now you develop your knight, so it's hitting the queen. So yeah, you are developing your piece and attacking the queen at the same time. So okay, simple, easy to understand. Now you always want to have a balance between attack and defense. Let's say that someone tries to scholar mate you. So here your pawn is under attack, but yeah, you just protect the pawn, right? You play knight c6, you're protecting the pawn, and you're doing fine. Now they continue with the attack. So yeah, this seems a little bit scary, but yeah, you just play g6 and everything is good. Now let's say they continue again, threatening to checkmate you here. You continue with development. So yeah, you want to develop your pieces that attack and defend at the same time. You want to reach that balance. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.